Hey, it's MkII, and in this video we're taking a look at the Arranger mode in the MkII Mark II. It's also called Song mode. Now the Arranger mode basically allows you to assemble a set of patterns to make a complete song. Now before we can get to the actual arranger, we need a set of patterns to work with. Now in this song we will be using three sequencers. Sequencer 1 will be a lead sound, sequencer 2 will be a bass sound, and sequencer 3 is our drums. So we will start by making sort of an intro sequence here. I'm using stochastic mode. In sequencer 1, we'll just make something here. Perfect. Now you need to save your patterns. So to save patterns, there are a few ways to do this. You can click the save button and then scroll the second encoder, get to the save pattern menu here. So now you can click the encoder and save the pattern. And in this menu, you can also rename the pattern. So we'll just rename this one pattern to, let's say, we'll call it intro. Like this. Now another way to save a pattern is to press the save button and you can see your patterns here. So there are 16 patterns per sequencer and you can tap them. Now it says double tap to save. So I will double tap this and it's saved. Now a third way is to hold the save button and then double tap and release the save button. Okay, now I want to make another pattern for sequencer 1. So I will load pattern 2. Now loading has the same functions as the save menu. So we can hold the load button and then single tap here will load a pattern. So we'll load pattern 2 here. And I will change this to mono and we'll do something like this. And now I will stretch it out using the Euclidean generator and we get this. Perfect. And again, to save, hold save and double tap. Now we want to make a baseline here. So we'll go into sequencer 2 and we'll create our baseline, something like this, nothing too fancy. And again, save. Now we want some drums. Sequencer 3, we'll put a few kick drums here and adjust their velocity. And this is our first pattern here. And altogether sounds like this. Now save this pattern here. And another way you can make a new pattern, you can simply edit the one you have loaded now. So I will do this because I want to have the same bass drum hits here, but we'll add some snare hits here, velocity a little lower, and some hi-hat here, like this, and crank the velocity, and then save to a different slot. So now we have both this pattern and this pattern saved for the drums. Okay, now we have enough patterns to make a very simple song. So I will press the Arranger button to get to this Arranger view here. Now on the screen you can see that the Arranger is off right now. We need to arm it before playing. And you can see we have loaded song 1. And on the encoders you have load song menu on the first encoder, save song menu on the second encoder. The third encoder chooses the master lane. We'll leave that off for now. And encoder 4 will scroll through the slots here. So when it says 16, you're seeing slots 17 to 32. And when it's at 0, you're seeing slots 1 to 16. So you get 32 slots per sequencer in the arranger. Now the symbols in the middle show the status of each sequencer. So the next step is to add patterns to our arranger here. So there are a few ways to do this. Now we can hold the slot. And when you hold the slot, you get this menu here, where you have your program change and your bank change, which we will ignore for this tutorial. And you can select your pattern with the third encoder. We'll choose our pattern 1 intro, and we'll have it repeat once. Now for the second sequencer, we'll choose something that we know is empty. So we'll just go for pattern 2 and have it repeat once. Now for sequencer 3, we'll choose an empty pattern as well and have it repeat once. So now we have the intro pattern on sequencer 1 and empty patterns on sequencer 2 and 3. Now another way to add patterns to the arranger is to press the page button when you are in the arranger view. Now you get a view of all of your patterns for each sequencer, and you can simply tap once to add them to the next slot. So we want to add pattern 2 on sequencer 1 to the next slot here, and then we want to add pattern 1 to the next slot for sequencer 2, and pattern 2 to the next, or pattern 1 to this next slot for sequencer 3. And we'll go back to our arranger, and you can see we have patterns here. Now, yet another way to add patterns is to load the patterns that you want to add. So let's say I want to add pattern 1 here, pattern 1 here, and pattern 2 to the drums. So now these are loaded, and when I press play, we can audition the set of patterns we have loaded. And now we can go into the arranger and hold the arranger button and press a slot on the column we want to add the loaded patterns to. Now this is called scene capture, and it will add all of your loaded patterns from all sequencers to the arranger at once. So this is a very fast way to audition your set of patterns and then add them to the arranger, and it will populate the empty slots and muted sequencers with empty patterns. Okay, so now we have a set of patterns here. I will set our repetitions. We'll have these repeat once and these repeat indefinitely. And to arm the arranger, you hold shift and press the arranger button. Now it says arranger idle. And when we press play, the Oxy will play through our arrangement here. So we'll just press play. So the next pattern that is queued up will light up like this. And this will play indefinitely. Now you may have noticed that I have repetitions set to 1 here, but it's actually repeating the pattern itself twice. Now this is due to the arranger launch quantize setting, which is 2 bars by default. Now we can change that by holding shift and pressing the perf and project button here to get to the project menu, and scroll down to find the arranger launch quantization setting. So default is 2 bars. You can have it 4, 8, 16, 32, 1 bar, half a bar, or pattern end. Now we will choose 1 bar and go back to the arranger here. And now we'll arm our arranger and press play again. So you can see we are moving faster through the arrangement, and the bar here is moving faster. It's basically moving 1 bar. Now to get to the same arrangement we had before, we will just double our repetitions here. So we need to use some very advanced mathematics to figure this out. And you can always see your status for each sequencer on the screen. And now they are playing indefinitely. Okay, now let's say I want this slot to move backwards to the previous pattern after 2 repetitions. I'll set my repetitions to 2. By the way, you can click this to quickly go between 1 and infinite repetitions. Now, with the next setting here is your playback direction. So basically, if you set this to the right arrow, the arranger will always move to the right to the next slot. And if I set it to left, it will go backwards to the previous slot. And if you set it to random, it will randomize from all the patterns in the sequencer slots, including the currently playing pattern. And when you set to other, it will randomize between all other patterns and excluding the current pattern. And first will of course jump to the first pattern. So we'll set this to the left arrow and repetitions to 2. And then arm the arranger and press play. So it will queue up the next one. And then queue up the next one. And now it will queue up the previous one. And go back. And it will queue up the next one. And it will continue this forever. Now we'll move on to the master lane setting. So we will set sequencer 1 to be the master lane. And what this means is that all the lanes in the arranger will follow sequencer 1. So when the sequencer 1 changes patterns to the next slot or the previous slot or whatever, the entire column will follow sequencer 1. So if we press play here, actually we'll set these to infinite. So these are playing infinitely, but now that we have a master lane, we can press play and it will override the settings for these. So even though these are set to repeat infinitely, they will follow the master lane. Now when you're using the arranger, you don't actually have to have the Oxy playback the arrangement automatically. You can also queue up patterns manually. So for this demonstration, I have turned off the master lane and I have loaded the first pattern from, or the first slot from each sequencer here, and we'll leave the arranger off and press play. Now we'll queue up our bass drum. And now these. Now the quantization here is based on the global quantization setting found in the project menu. So we can set this to 2 bars and go back to the arranger, and you can see the bar here moving slower. It will complete 1 cycle for every 2 bars. So you can have different settings for quantization for the arranger launch quantization and for the global quantization. Okay, that's it for this basic tutorial on the Oxy One Mark II arranger mode. Now the arranger mode is a lot simpler than it might at first appear, so I suggest you simply start playing with the arranger, create patterns, make some simple songs, and you will soon get the hang of it. Now if you enjoyed this tutorial, I hope you like and subscribe, and I will see you again very soon.